Have you ever witnessed a moment where everything changed in the blink of an eye? Tonight's story was just the beginning. What happens next will leave you speechless. But before we dive into tomorrow's shocking twist, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I'd love to see how far our community stretches. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter. The next part of this story drops tomorrow. Are you ready? He tried to poison me, but I let his mistress take the first sip. Emily had always believed in love, the kind that stands the test of time, the kind built on trust, laughter, and shared dreams. For 7 years, she had been married to Ryan, a man she once thought was her soulmate. He was charming, successful, and always seemed to have the right words at the right time. But somewhere along the way, those words started feeling empty, and the love she once held so tightly in her heart began to feel like a fading illusion. At first, she ignored the signs. The late nights at the office. The unexplained phone calls. The way Ryan had started pulling away, as if his mind was somewhere else, somewhere far from their home. She told herself it was just stress, that his job had become more demanding, that maybe they were just going through a rough patch. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered the truth, a truth she wasn't ready to face. Then, one evening, that truth revealed itself in the most unexpected way. Emily had been cleaning their bedroom when she found his MacBook, left open on the desk. Normally, she wouldn't have invaded his privacy, but something felt off. It was as if fate itself was pushing her to look. And when she did, her world shattered. There, on the screen, was an open email thread. At first glance, it seemed innocent, work-related, perhaps. But as she scrolled, the words became more intimate, more revealing. Jessica. The name jumped out at her, over and over again. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. I wish I could spend every night with you instead. Her hands trembled as she clicked through the messages. Hotel reservations. Dinner plans. Excuses carefully crafted to cover his tracks. It had been going on for months. Maybe even longer. Every whispered doubt she had ignored, every uneasy feeling she had pushed away, was now staring her in the face. Emily felt the weight of betrayal settle deep in her chest. She could have confronted him that night. She could have screamed, thrown things, demanded an explanation. But what good would that do? She knew Ryan. He was smooth, calculated. He would twist the truth, manipulate the moment, make her feel like she was overreacting. No. If he had been playing a game behind her back, then it was time for her to start playing one of her own. She took a deep breath, closed the laptop, and wiped her tears. A confrontation wouldn't bring her peace. But something else might. So she waited. She smiled when she needed to. She played the role of the unsuspecting wife perfectly. And as she gathered more evidence, text messages, receipts, social media interactions, she crafted a plan. A plan that would make Ryan realize he had chosen the wrong woman to betray. Emily wasn't just going to catch him in the act. She was going to make sure that, when the moment came, he would regret every single lie he had ever told. Emily had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Every detail had been planned, every possibility accounted for. She had smiled through the pain, pretended not to notice Ryan's late nights, his secret phone calls, the way he always seemed just a little too distracted. But tonight, all of that was about to change. Ryan had suggested dinner at Steele's Steakhouse, one of their favorite spots in downtown Chicago. A place filled with memories, anniversaries, celebrations, nights where they had once laughed together over medium-rare ribeyes and rich glasses of Cabernet Sauvignon. The irony wasn't lost on Emily. This wasn't just another date night. This was the perfect setting for his deception. As they arrived, Emily played her part flawlessly. She smiled at Ryan as he pulled out her chair, acted surprised when he ordered her favorite wine. He was trying too hard. Overcompensating. She could see it in the way his fingers tapped against the table, the way he kept checking the entrance as if waiting for someone. Then, Right on cue, Jessica walked in. Emily felt her stomach tighten, but she forced herself to stay composed. The woman was exactly as she had imagined, young, confident, completely unaware of the storm she was about to walk into. Ryan waved her over, his grin widening. "Emily, I thought it would be nice for us all to have dinner together," he said, his voice smooth as ever. "I wanted you two to finally meet." The audacity. Emily tilted her head, feigning surprise. "Oh, really?" she said, letting just a hint of amusement slip into her tone. "Well, isn't that thoughtful of you, Ryan?" Jessica took the seat next to Ryan, her eyes flickering between the two of them. She didn't know. She had no idea Emily was fully aware of everything. And that was exactly how Emily wanted it. The evening played out like a well-rehearsed scene in a play. Small talk, forced laughter, the occasional glance from Ryan as if to gauge his wife's reaction. He thought he was in control. He had no idea he was already losing. Then came the moment Emily had been waiting for. Ryan ordered a 6-ounce glass of Cabernet Sauvignon for her, the same wine he always insisted she drink. But as he handed it to her, something shifted. His smile was too careful, his eyes watching her just a little too closely. And then she smelled it, something just beneath the rich aroma of the wine. A hint of something off. Emily's pulse quickened, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she took the glass, raised it to her lips, and took the smallest sip. Just enough to play along. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she turned to Jessica and handed her the glass. "Here," Emily said, smiling sweetly. "You should try this. It's my favorite." Jessica hesitated for only a second before taking it. Emily watched as she lifted the glass, took a sip, then another. The trap was set. Now, all she had to do was wait. The moment Jessica set the glass down, Emily leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding in her chest, though her face remained perfectly composed. The restaurant hummed with the usual sounds, silverware clinking against plates, quiet conversations, the low murmur of laughter from nearby tables. But to Emily, the world had narrowed to just 3 people, herself, Ryan, and Jessica. She watched, waiting. At first, nothing happened. Jessica smiled, oblivious, taking another sip of the wine. Ryan continued making small talk, still under the illusion that he was in control of the evening. But Emily saw it, the slight shift in his posture, the tension creeping into his shoulders. He kept glancing at Jessica, his fingers tightening around his glass. He was waiting for something to happen. And then, it did. Jessica's smile wavered. She brought a hand to her throat, her brow furrowing as if something didn't feel quite right. A soft cough escaped her lips. Then another. Her fingers clenched the edge of the table, and Emily could see the exact moment the panic set in. Ryan noticed it too. "Jess?" His voice was careful, forced, like he was trying to sound calm, but the edge of worry cracked through. Jessica tried to answer, but her throat tightened, her breathing turning shallow. She let out a strangled gasp, her body stiffening as her hand flew to her chest. A sharp clang echoed through the restaurant as her fork slipped from her grasp, hitting the plate. The low conversations around them quieted. People were starting to notice. Ryan's entire expression changed. Gone was the confident, smooth-talking husband. His eyes widened, his jaw tensed, and for the first time that night, Emily saw something raw in his face. Fear. Jessica wheezed, gripping Ryan's arm now, her nails digging into his sleeve. He shot up from his seat, knocking over his own wine glass, the dark red liquid spilling across the white linen tablecloth like blood. "Somebody help!" His voice was louder now, urgent. A waiter rushed toward them, but Ryan wasn't paying attention to anyone else. His entire world had shrunk to Jessica, who was now struggling to stay upright in her chair. Emily sat still, hands folded neatly in her lap, watching it all unfold. She could hear the whispers from other diners. The hushed speculation. Was she choking? Did something happen to her drink? Should they call 911? Ryan turned to Emily now, desperation in his eyes. What did you do?" She raised an eyebrow, tilting her head slightly. "Me?" she asked, voice calm, almost amused. "I didn't do anything. You gave me that drink, remember?" His mouth opened, but no words came out. He was trapped, caught in a moment he hadn't prepared for, and Emily could see the exact second he realized the truth. This wasn't her mistake. It was his. As the chaos around them grew, Emily simply watched. The game had only just begun. Emily remained seated, watching as Ryan's carefully crafted world began to collapse around him. The once confident man now looked completely lost, his hands shaking as he tried to support Jessica, his eyes darting around the room, desperate for someone to fix this. But no one could. Not this time. The whispers among the other diners grew louder. A waiter was already calling 911. A manager rushed over, asking frantic questions, but Ryan could barely respond. Jessica's breathing was ragged now, her complexion turning pale. She clutched at Ryan's arm, eyes wide with panic, silently pleading for him to do something, anything. Emily didn't move. She didn't flinch when Ryan turned to her, his face filled with something between rage and desperation. She didn't react when he demanded, "What the hell did you do?" She only smiled. "Nothing, Ryan." Her voice was steady, smooth, almost sweet. "I only did what any loving wife would do, I trusted you." His face drained of color, and for the first time in their marriage, Emily saw it, true, unfiltered terror. Not just fear for Jessica, but fear for himself. Fear that he had lost control. And he had. Emily slowly picked up her napkin, dabbing at the corner of her lips as if none of this was happening. She wanted to savor this moment. Not out of cruelty, but because this was the first time in years that she felt truly, undeniably free. "You know," she mused, setting the napkin down neatly beside her plate, "it's funny. I spent so long thinking I wasn't enough for you. That maybe I was the problem. But now?" She exhaled, a small laugh escaping her lips. "Now I see things so clearly." Ryan blinked, barely able to process what she was saying. The restaurant was in full panic now, waiters rushing, someone shouting for help, a chair screeching against the floor as Jessica's body slumped against the table. But Emily didn't care. This moment wasn't about Jessica. It wasn't even about Ryan. It was about her. Standing up slowly, she reached for her clutch and adjusted her coat. She moved with an ease she hadn't felt in years. She had spent too much time living in Ryan's shadow, bending to his will, allowing herself to believe the lies he had fed her. But tonight, those lies had unraveled. And she was finally done. Ryan tried to grab her arm, his fingers desperate. "Emily, wait," she pulled away effortlessly, her gaze locking onto his one last time. "You made your choices, Ryan," she said softly, yet there was an edge to her voice that sent a shiver down his spine. "Now you live with them." With that, she turned and walked away, stepping out into the cold, crisp night air. The chaos behind her faded, replaced by something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. For the first time in a long time, Emily was free. The cold night air hit Emily's face as she stepped onto the quiet Chicago street. The distant hum of traffic, the glow of streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement, it all felt strangely surreal. Behind her, the chaos in the restaurant continued, but she didn't look back. She didn't need to. The past was behind her now, and for the first time in years, she was walking away from it without hesitation. Each step forward felt lighter. She had done it. She had taken back control. A slow exhale escaped her lips as she reached for her iPhone in her clutch. She wasn't sure why, maybe out of habit, maybe just to ground herself in the reality of this moment. But as she unlocked the screen, her stomach twisted. A new message. The number was unknown. Her pulse quickened as she read the words glowing against the screen. "You've only just begun. Don't think for a second that you've won. Ryan isn't the only one with power." Emily stopped in her tracks. A chill that had nothing to do with the wind crept up her spine. Her eyes scanned the empty street, suddenly hyper-aware of every shadow, every movement, every flickering light in the distance. Was someone watching her? Her fingers hovered over the screen as if responding would somehow make things clearer. But she didn't reply. She didn't need to. She had spent months gathering information on Ryan, tracking his lies, uncovering his deception. And yet, she had never considered the possibility that he wasn't acting alone. Who sent this? Was it someone close to him? Someone protecting him? Her grip tightened on the phone as she quickly blocked the number. But the unease remained, pressing against her chest like a heavy weight. This wasn't over. She could feel it. Ryan was a liar, a manipulator. But was he more than that? She had assumed he was just another cheating husband, another man who thought he could have everything without consequence. But what if there was more to his secrets? What if the betrayal she uncovered was only the surface of something much deeper, something far more dangerous? Emily took a slow breath, steadying herself. She had already come too far to turn back now. If Ryan thought he could scare her into silence, he was wrong. She wasn't the same woman who had blindly trusted him, who had ignored the warning signs. She was done being the victim. Lifting her chin, she slid her phone back into her clutch and kept walking, her heels clicking against the pavement with quiet determination. Whoever had sent that message, whoever thought they could intimidate her, they had no idea who they were dealing with. The game wasn't over. It was just getting started. What would you have done if you were in Emily's shoes? Would you have confronted Ryan the moment you found out, or would you have played the long game like she did? Let's talk about it in the comments. Have you ever experienced betrayal or deception like this? Maybe not to this extreme, but sometimes, the smallest betrayals hurt the most. How did you handle it? Did you walk away, or did you make sure they learned their lesson? Also, what do you think about that mysterious message at the end? Do you believe Ryan was just a cheating husband, or is there something much darker beneath the surface? Who do you think sent that text? Drop your thoughts below. I love hearing different perspectives. And if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe for the next chapter. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. This story is far from over.